Picture this. You're in medieval England, 1450. You've been convicted of treason. They drag you out of the dungeon at dawn, walk you to the town square where a crowd's gathered to watch you die. There's a wooden block in the center, an executioner standing next to it with an axe. You're hoping he's sober and knows what he's doing, because the difference between a quick death and a nightmare is whether this guy can aim. They push you down to your knees. Your head goes on the block, neck stretched out. You hear the executioner raise the axe, the whoosh of it coming down toward your neck. Oh, hey there. Before we talk about what just happened to your spinal cord and whether your head stays conscious after it rolls away, let's play a quick game. I'm gonna say some myths about decapitation, and you tell me true or false. Ready? Myth 1. When your head gets cut off, you die instantly. True or false? Complicated. Your brain doesn't die instantly. It takes about 10 to 15 seconds for your brain to run out of oxygen and shut down. Whether you're conscious during those seconds is debatable, but your brain is still technically functioning for a brief window after your head leaves your body. Myth 2. A sharp blade and a strong swing means you don't feel anything. True or false? Mostly true. If the executioner knows what he's doing and the blade is sharp, the cut happens so fast that your nerves don't have time to send pain signals before your spinal cord is severed. The problem is, if the executioner knows what he's doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. Myth 3. Your head can stay conscious long enough to see your own body after it's separated. True or false? Probably false, but also maybe? There are historical accounts of executed heads blinking, moving their eyes, or even trying to speak for a few seconds after being severed. Whether that's actual consciousness or just muscle spasms is up for debate, but it's disturbing either way. Alright, now let's talk about what happens when a medieval executioner with questionable hand-eye coordination attempts to separate your head from your body with one swing of a large metal blade. And fun fact, Anne Boleyn, second wife of Henry VIII, specifically requested a skilled swordsman from France for her execution instead of the usual axe-wielding executioner because she'd seen too many botched beheadings and wanted to make sure hers went smoothly. It worked, clean cut, one swing, dead, instantly. So if you're ever getting executed in medieval times, invest in a good executioner. It matters. So what actually happens when your head gets separated from your body? And why is there a debate about whether you stay conscious for a few seconds afterward? First, let's talk about what needs to happen for a clean decapitation. Your neck contains your spinal cord, which is the highway of nerves connecting your brain to the rest of your body. It's surrounded by 7 cervical vertebrae, bones that protect it. It's also packed with blood vessels, muscles, tendons, and your trachea and esophagus. To decapitate someone, you need to sever all of that in one motion. The blade has to cut through skin, muscle, cartilage, bone, and spinal cord, with enough force and precision that everything separates cleanly. If the executioner's strong and the blade is sharp and he hits the right spot between vertebrae where there's a natural gap, this happens in a fraction of a second. When the cut is clean, here's what happens physiologically. Your spinal cord is severed instantly, which means all communication between your brain and body stops immediately. Your heart might keep beating for a few seconds because it has its own electrical system, but without signals from your brain, it stops quickly. Your lungs stop breathing because the muscles that control breathing need signals from your brainstem, and those signals can't travel through a severed spinal cord. Your head, now separated, still has oxygenated blood in the brain for about 10 to 15 seconds. During those seconds, your brain is still metabolically active. Neurons are still firing. Whether you're conscious during this window is the million-dollar question that's been debated for centuries. Some scientists think consciousness requires continuous blood flow and oxygen. So, once you're decapitated, you lose consciousness almost immediately. Others point to historical accounts and animal studies suggesting that there might be a brief window of awareness before everything shuts down. There are stories from the French Revolution of executed heads blinking when their names were called, or eyes tracking movement, or lips moving as if trying to speak. Are these conscious actions, or just muscle reflexes and nerve misfires? We don't know for sure because, ethically, we can't exactly test this on living humans. Now let's talk about what happens when the execution doesn't go cleanly, which was unfortunately common in medieval times because executioners were often undertrained, drunk, or working with dull blades. If the first swing doesn't sever everything, if it hits bone wrong or doesn't have enough force, you're left partially decapitated. The blade cuts into your neck, severs some vertebrae and arteries, but doesn't go all the way through. You're still technically alive, bleeding catastrophically, probably in shock, and the executioner has to swing again. And again, some botched executions took 5 or 6 swings before the head finally came off. During this, you're conscious for at least the first few swings, because your brain is still attached to your body and getting blood flow. You feel each impact. You feel the blade cutting deeper. You're drowning in your own blood, because your trachea is severed and blood is pouring into your lungs. It's not a clean death, it's a prolonged, agonizing nightmare. This is why Anne Boleyn requested a swordsman. Swords are faster and more precise than axes. A skilled executioner with a sharp blade can make it genuinely quick. An unskilled one turns your execution into a horror show. Let's walk through what happens from the moment the blade hits your neck to the moment your brain shuts down completely, assuming this is a clean execution and not a multi-swing disaster. Second 0. The axe comes down with enough force to cut through your neck in one swing. The blade is sharp, the executioner aimed properly, and he hit the gap between your 4th and 5th cervical vertebrae where there's less bone to go through. The sensation is complicated. On one hand, the cut happens so fast, we're talking a fraction of a second, that your pain nerves don't have time to fire before your spinal cord is severed and all signals from your neck down stop reaching your brain. On the other hand, there's massive trauma happening and your brain registers impact, pressure, and something catastrophically wrong even if it doesn't register as pain in the traditional sense. Your head separates from your body. It falls forward off the block or gets caught by an assistant, depending on the execution setup. Your body, now headless, slumps forward or backward. Blood is spurting from the severed arteries in your neck, both from your head and from your body. There's a lot of blood. Medieval execution blocks had grooves carved into them specifically to channel the blood away. Seconds 1 through 5 after your head is separated, your brain still has oxygenated blood in it from before the cut. Your neurons are still firing. You might still be conscious, though what conscious means in this context is debatable. If you are conscious, what are you experiencing? Probably confusion, disorientation. Your vision might still work for a few seconds because your eyes and visual cortex haven't run out of oxygen yet. You might see the crowd, the ground, the sky spinning as your head tumbles or rolls. You can't move your body because you don't have a body anymore. You probably can't move your eyes or facial muscles much either, because without blood pressure, your muscles don't have the oxygen they need to contract effectively. You might blink reflexively or your eyes might move involuntarily, but controlled movement is unlikely. You definitely can't breathe, because breathing requires your diaphragm and lungs, which are attached to your body, not your head. You can't speak because speech requires airflow from your lungs through your vocal cords, and again, you don't have lungs anymore. So if you are conscious, you're trapped in your head with no ability to communicate or move, just experiencing the absolute surreal horror of being aware that you're a severed head, which, honestly, sounds like the worst thing imaginable. Seconds 5 through 10. Your brain is running out of oxygen now. Neurons are starting to fail as they deplete their energy reserves. Your vision is going dark, not because you're closing your eyes, but because your visual cortex needs oxygen to process information, and it's not getting any. Sounds fade, assuming you could hear anything over the crowd noise and the ringing in your ears from the catastrophic drop in blood pressure. Any awareness you might have had is dissolving rapidly. Your thoughts, if you're having them, are fragmenting and incoherent. It's not like falling asleep. It's more like your consciousness is being forcibly shut down in pieces. Seconds 10 through 15. Your brain cells are dying en masse from oxygen deprivation. The electrical activity in your brain is dropping to 0. Whatever awareness existed is gone now. You're not conscious. You're not experiencing anything. Your brain has shut down. Your head might still have some reflexive activity. Eyes blinking, jaw moving, facial muscles twitching. But these are just random nerve firings as cells die, not conscious actions. Meanwhile, your body's on the platform bleeding out, headless, sometimes still twitching or moving, as nerves fire randomly in the spinal cord. The crowd is cheering or jeering or placing bets on whether your eyes moved. Someone's collecting your head to display it on a spike as a warning to others. Total time from decapitation to brain death, 10 to 15 seconds. Probably less if the cut was clean and you lost consciousness from the shock immediately. So what does getting decapitated actually feel like from your perspective? The moments before are terrifying. You're kneeling on a platform, head on a block, crowd watching, knowing that in a few seconds, your head is going to be separated from your body by a guy with an axe who you're really hoping had a good breakfast and steady hands. The impact itself is sudden and overwhelming. There's pressure, immense pressure, as the blade hits your neck and then everything just separates. If the cut is clean, there's probably no pain in the traditional sense because your spinal cord is severed before pain signals can travel to your brain. but your brain definitely registers that something catastrophic just happened. If you stay conscious for even a few seconds after your head is off, and that's a big if, it's probably the most disorienting thing imaginable. Your body is gone. You can't breathe. You can't move. You might see things, but you can't process what you're seeing properly because your brain is oxygen deprived and shutting down rapidly. Some historical accounts describe executed heads with expressions of surprise or confusion, eyes wide open, mouth slightly agape, like they're in the middle of realizing what just happened. Whether that's conscious awareness or just the muscles freezing in that position is anyone's guess. And then consciousness fades. Vision goes dark, sounds disappear, whatever thoughts you might have had dissolve into nothing. It's not gradual like falling asleep, it's more like someone flipping a light switch. One moment, there's something, the next, there's nothing. If the execution is botched and takes multiple swings, the experience is infinitely worse. You feel the first impact, the blade cutting into your neck but not going through. You're choking on blood, gasping for air, pain screaming through your nervous system. Then the second swing hits, then the third. Each one cutting deeper, more trauma, more agony, until finally your spinal cord is severed and the signals stop. That's the nightmare scenario, the one Anne Boleyn was trying to avoid by hiring a professional. Because the difference between a quick death and a prolonged one comes down to whether the executioner knows what he's doing. Reality check. Decapitation as an execution method has been used for thousands of years across virtually every culture. Ancient Rome, medieval Europe, feudal Japan, revolutionary France, modern-day Saudi Arabia, beheading has been a go-to method for dealing with criminals, traitors, and political enemies. Why was it so popular? Because it's definitive. There's no ambiguity about whether the person is dead. Their head is literally separated from their body. Also, it's public and dramatic, which served as a deterrent to others and reinforced the power of whoever ordered the execution. The guillotine, invented in 1789 during the French Revolution, was actually designed to be more humane than traditional beheading. The idea was that a mechanical blade falling from a height would guarantee a clean, quick cut every time, regardless of the executioner's skill. And it worked. The guillotine was horrifyingly efficient. During the Reign of Terror, it executed thousands of people with assembly line precision. Famous beheadings throughout history include Anne Boleyn, Mary Queen of Scots, King Charles I of England, Marie Antoinette, and countless others whose names we don't remember because they weren't royalty. Some executions went smoothly. Many didn't. Mary Queen of Scots' execution famously took 3 swings because the executioner was either incompetent or nervous, and historical accounts say she was still moving after the first 2 strikes. In modern times, judicial beheading still happens in a few countries, usually with a sword rather than an axe or guillotine. It's considered cruel and unusual punishment by most of the world, but it persists in places where traditional or religious law is still enforced. Outside of judicial executions, decapitation still happens in accidents, car crashes, industrial accidents, terrorist attacks, and the physiological reality is the same, regardless of the cause. Severed head, severed spinal cord, brain running out of oxygen, death within seconds. The question of consciousness after decapitation has never been definitively answered because we can't ethically study it. Animal studies suggest there might be brief awareness, but animal brains are different from human brains. Historical accounts are unreliable because they're anecdotal and often written for dramatic effect. What we do know is this: even if there's a brief window of consciousness, it's measured in seconds, not minutes. You're not awake long enough to have coherent thoughts or process what's happening in any meaningful way. Your brain just doesn't have the oxygen reserves to maintain consciousness for more than a few seconds. So, while the idea of a severed head staying conscious is horrifying and makes for good horror stories, the reality is probably much less dramatic. You're either unconscious immediately from shock, or you fade out within seconds as your brain shuts down from oxygen deprivation. So there you have it. Decapitation, quick if done right, nightmare fuel if done wrong, and probably less conscious awareness in a severed head than horror movies would have you believe. The good news is, you're probably not going to be judicially beheaded unless you time travel to medieval Europe or commit crimes in one of the few countries that still does this. The bad news is, decapitation still happens in accidents, and the physics are the same, whether it's an executioner's axe or a piece of industrial machinery. So maybe appreciate that you live in a time and place where public executions aren't entertainment and executioners aren't a career path. And if you ever do find yourself about to be executed in medieval times, take Anne Boleyn's advice and hire a professional. Like and subscribe if you like this video. Stay safe, keep your head on, and if someone ever offers you a choice between a skilled executioner and a drunk guy with a dull axe. Pay extra for the professional. Your neck will thank you. Briefly.